Okay, so before we start with the coding part, can you tell me like what is HTTP request?
Oh, okay. So HTTP basically stand for it is a kind of protocol which a browser follow in order to send or receive file from the server. Where HTTP stand for hypertext transfer protocol, and basically while making a connection over this protocol, it is not that much secure. That is why we all the browser shifted towards HTTPS protocol. Whenever a browser makes a request to the server, that the request it makes is the HTTP request.
Do you know some methods, HTTP
Uh,
request method?
yes, sir. So
Can you?
we have post, get, put, and patch, and delete as well.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move to the next question. So, can you tell me what is event bubbling?
Yes. So whenever with the help of user interaction, a driven event is triggered, and
Hmm.
in the backend, whenever a trigger event is triggered, it starts from the window object at the top level, and it moves down to that place where the event was triggered. So this is the one phase, and the when this triggered is bubbled up, or it
Mhm.
goes back to the original position or the original place where it was originated, and that second phase is called as event bubbling. So if I take an example, so we have a parent container, inside there is a child. So when I triggered an event on the child container, first of all, that event will be reflected on the child and the parent. So that is how the event is bubbling up to its outer scope.
Okay, and how we can prevent it?
Whenever we are declaring this event listener, we can
Mhm.
pass a third argument as uh, I I guess I'm not sure about this, but I feel we can pass false as its value. So in that,
Which
uh,
value?
okay, I was actually wrong. So in order to prevent this, we can do the event dot stop propagation. In
Yeah, that's the correct answer. I was
yes,
okay. Can you share me your screen? So I'll share you one question.
yes.
You can open any JavaScript editor.
So just give.
Hmm. Yeah, it's fine now. Okay. So just open the chat box. Chat box. Yeah. Okay. So first thing, I'm sharing you the array of numbers. This one. Okay. And the goal is 13. So what's the meaning of goal and array? I will explain. So there is an array, okay, of the numbers. So you have to count the value of those elements. So let's suppose 1 and 3, if we count the index number 0 and 2, sorry, 0 and 1, so it would be 4, right?
Yes.
And if we count the index number 1 and 2, so it will be 13,
Yes.
right? So that's our goal.
Okay.
Did you get my point?
So we need to add two number. It can be any number in the array, and we need to make this number like the goal one.
13, right?
Uh,
So in this case, 3 and 10 is equal to 13, right?
yes.
So what you have to do, you have to return the index number of those elements.
Okay.
Yeah. So your output would be index number 1 and 2.
Okay.
So your output should be 1 and 2.
Okay. So the order can be in any way. It can be 2, 1 as well.
Sorry.
So here we are outputting as 1, 2. If we
Yeah.
just reverse it, if we print 2, 1, that could be
That's also fine. I just want 1 and 2.
uh,
You can return in array or just return 1 or 2. That's it has no issue. I just want the output 1 and 2. Just index number I want.
suppose that first of all. For that, we
Mm.
can create an array where we will be storing our answer, the index values, and
Mm.
we can create a nested for loop which will go till array dot length, which is dot, and inside there will be another and here. We'll try to find if uh, array of I plus
Mm.
array of j is equals to the goal value. In that case, we can simply console the logger answer I comma j, and we can break from this loop. And also, we can create another flag out for the outer loop.
Mhm.
If this condition meet, we can mark this flag as true, and we also break through this loop if the flag is become true from this condition. And also, we can add a uh, one more condition here. If I equals to j, then we can continue for that one.
Okay.
So yes, I guess this should work. Yes.
Okay. So can you tell me what will be the time complexity for this code that you have written?
So the time complexity will be n square.
Okay, that's correct. So is there any other way to reduce the time complexity?
Yes. For that, we can create a separate an object, and while iterating through the this array for the first time, we can
Mhm.
keep the record of the previous value and their index. And while we are exploring the current value, we can keep the check whether the its corresponding value is already present in the object or not. So for that, I can create another object here.
Okay, can you try it once?
Yes. So here. So with the help of this loop, I am iterating the this array for the first time, and I will check let temp value, which will be 4 minus array of. So this value we want to check inside our object. If that value is present, we
Mm-hmm.
will get to know that if we sum this value with the help of this, then we will get our the sum will be goal. So in that case, we can simply print our answer. So we will check. It is present. I can so, if it is present, then we can console object temp. So corresponding to that, we will store its index value, where this value is lying inside this array,
Mm-hmm.
and this will be the index of this value, and for the index of this, we will simply print a I. And once this is done, we will simply break because at this point we will have our answer at line number 9. But if this condition does not meet, then we need to store our value inside the object for the future references.
Mm-hmm.
For that, we will do object then is equals to sorry array of 5 will be equals to. And if I do return trial, then for the first value, there will be nothing inside this temp, and this condition will not meet, and we will store one value corresponding to the I. And for the next for 3, again there will be no value inside the object, and we will store uh, 3 as its key inside the object, and its index value as its value. So I guess it should work.
Can you run it?
Yes. Yes, it is working.
Yeah, that's correct. Okay, Pravat. So let's move to the next question. I have one another coding question. Yeah. Can you open this link?
Yes, sir.
It's still loading, I guess. Can you open the index.html?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So it's a I mean it's an array of object. So what you have to do, you have to return the total price of these two product.
Okay. So in this array we have product quantity. So we need to calculate the total price of all the product.
Yeah. So if it has quantity 2, so it should be 2.5. 2.5 is equal to 5 for the second product.
Okay. So for this we can create a for loop and add for the each index. For the each element, we have the access of this object, and with the help of dot notation, we can abstract these values, and we can store those numbers inside of some variable. So at the global scope, I can create some variable, and in order to iterate this array, I can create a for array length, and I can do sum plus equals to array of I row or quantity multiply array of I row twice. So when we complete with this group, we will simply print the sum answer.
Total by network. That's correct answer. Okay. Okay. So now I will ask you some question from the React.js. Okay. So tell me why we should not use the index as a key in React list.
So whenever we are iterating through the array which contains some data in the React, in order to create a list out of that, we pass
Mm.
the value of key attribute in order to so that React can understand or do some optimization with the list component that it will create while iterating over the. So whenever there is a change in the component, so we know that the React will re-render that component again. But if we do not pass the key attribute, in that case it will re-render the entire component, the list component again and again, which might create a performance related issue. But in order to avoid that, that is why we pass a key attribute in that, so that React can know that this list element was present in the previous render, and it does not have to recreate the same component again and again. So yeah.
Okay. I was asking why we should not use index. We use index as a key most of the times, right?
So why we should not use key index as a
Yeah.
index? So whatever value we are passing inside the key, that should be associated with the item of the uh, element of the array, because whenever the index value is not that much is not properly associated with the element, because of which it can create some kind of inconsistency in our code, which we do not want. So yes, and apart from this thing, like passing an index key to the element,
Mhm.
uh,
So, what are the problems we can face if we use index as a key in the list?
okay.
Let's suppose we are adding some items or we are reversing it. So, what would happen in that scenario?
So I'm not sure about the answer, but I feel if let's take any index which is one, it is associated with a, a, a list component in the previous render, and that same index, which is one in our case, will be passed to the another component, and in that case, the data that was present inside the previous render of the component will not be passed to the same element. And if there we want that there should be updation of the list element, and in
Hmm.
that case that will not properly handled by the React.
Yeah, it's correct. So, let's suppose if you are adding any element in array, okay. So
Okay.
if we add any element, I mean if we add any element to the list, so it will goes to the last, right? So let's suppose there are three elements, so it will be fourth one. So it will render only one list in our React component, right?
Yes.
Okay, but in case if we put any new element at the start of any array, so on that case the index number of all element will be changed,
Yes.
right? Did you get my point?
Yes.
So in the second scenario, the whole list will be loaded.
Okay.
That's why we should not use the index as a key. We should use the unique ID.
Okay. So actually got your point. Like there will be problem with the associativity, like to the particular element. So
Yeah, right, right, right. Okay. Do you know about the style component?
No, exactly not so.
Okay. Okay. Let's move to the next question. So, can you explain the concept of reconciliation in React.js?
Yes. So whenever there is a change in the React component or in the UI part, so React creates a virtual copy of that. So previously, the it already has a virtual copy of that. Whenever there is a change happen, it recreates a new copy of that, and with the help of a most optimized approach, it recreates the creates a new DOM structure where it changes only that part where the change has happened. So in that case, we are not rendering the entire original DOM structure, but we are changing only the specific part with the help of some optimization technique which React uses in the backend, and that whole process is called as reconciliation.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, let's move. Can you tell me the difference between server side rendering (SSR) and CSR (client side rendering)?
So in the client side rendering, so
Mm-hmm.
whenever a user makes a request, server sends the bundles of JavaScript file and along with a minimal HTML document file where the content is almost empty on the server side. But once it is pushed to the client side, where the whole creation of the HTML document is done with the help of JavaScript, and from there the whole HTML is created and then it is passed by the browser. But in the case of server side rendering, the entire HTML document is created by the server, and
Mm-hmm.
uh, which is then sent to the client. So yeah, but they have their own upside and downside. So if you allow me, then I can explain that as well.
Yeah, yeah. Tell me.
Okay. So in the case of server-side rendering, so the in this case the SEO will be more optimized because once we are sending to the client side, the entire document is already created. So that will help the SEO to scan through the HTML and pick up the content where the website should be ranked. But in the case of client side, we are sending the only the empty HTML, so that will not be optimized for the SEOs. Uh, so these are the advantages of the server-side rendering. And if I talk about some
CSR.
CSR advantage,
Mm-hmm.
in that case,
Any advantage? Do you know?
yes, I guess we can put less load on the server because we are sending all the files on the client side where the entire HTML generated on the server. Sorry, on the client side, which will reduce the load on the server.
Okay, can you tell me like how do you optimize the large list in React.js? I
Uh,
mean, how do you optimize the rendering of large list in React.js?
Optimization of large list.
Yeah, because if we like if we try to load thousands, tens of thousands or lakhs of data in our browser, so it will be crash.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. So the question is like we have an array and we are creating a list out of that. So this is the question.
Sorry, can you repeat?
We have a chunk of arrays of data, and we are
Mm-hmm.
creating a separate component out of that. So this is the question, like how we can optimize this thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So the first thing is we can use the key attribute, which will help the React to understand whether this component is already created or not, and this way the rendering part can be skipped for the every component when the parent component re-renders. And second thing, whatever data we are
Let's
passing
suppose,
these elements.
just wait. Let's suppose you have 10,000 of employees data. Okay,
Yes.
and you need to list all data in your browser using React.js,
Yes.
the whole data. There, so like if you try to load like 10,000 of data, your browser will be crashed,
Yes.
right? So how you can manage those things? How you can optimize it?
So
Okay.
for this, we can use the pagination technique, or we
Mm.
can end a scroll bar at the end. So once we click on that button, only then the more data will be fetched from the server. So in this way, we can optimize it.
Okay, this is the one thing. There is a way that is there is a technique that is called the virtualization.
Uh,
Okay, so if you talk about the React.js, there is a library called React.window.
okay.
React window. Let me share you this one. I have said in the chat box.
Uh,
So using this library, you can render large list of data without crashing your browser.
okay.
Okay, let's move to the next question. Can you explain the concept of memoization and its importance?
Yes. So, memoization is a technique in which the previous results of a function is cached. So, whenever we are making, we do some kind of computation for the future purposes, we can use the past pre-evaluated data. So, yeah, that is memoization.
Okay, yeah, that's correct. Okay, can you tell me how we can prevent the unnecessary re-renders in React.js?
Okay. So for that, we have various external hooks in React, like React.memo. So this is a, higher order component, so to say, which takes a React component, and whenever it will re-render the children component only when there is a change in the props. And
Mm,
also it accepts comparison function as well.
mm.
Other things like yes, I feel this is the only thing through which we can memorize the higher order component. Sorry, React component.
Okay, fine. Okay. Okay. The next question.
Okay.
Do you write the unit test cases as well? You know.
So I have like overview like how it works, but I do not have much practice on that.
Okay, that's fine. Okay. One last question that I will ask you. Okay. Can you tell me how our browser understand the code?
How browser understand the code.
Mhm.
Hmm. So, like the HTML file or like the general file, like how it understand.
Definitely HTML. All pages are built using HTML, right?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, sorry. No, so I do not have clarity on this.
Okay. So you may Google it later.
Uh,
So actually, it is a most asked question in most of the MNC's company. So it would be better if you focus on it also. Okay, so I'm done with the interview, Prabhat. So do you have any question?